You know, it's kind of crazy to think about, but most of us spend something like 90% of our lives indoors. We do it thinking we're safe, shielded from all the pollution outside. But what if the air inside your own home was actually 5 times more polluted than the air just outside your window? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the invisible threats that might be lurking in your home right now. Right? Think about it. We seal our homes up tight for comfort, for energy efficiency. But in doing that, we can trap a whole cocktail of pollutants right there with us. And this isn't some small thing. For a lot of people, the quality of the air inside their home has a way bigger impact on their health than the smoggy air outside. So, first up, let's talk about the sneaky ones, the unseen chemicals. We're talking about volatile organic compounds, or VOCs for short. Now, these are basically gases that get released from everyday things, solids and liquids you would never even suspect. And trust me, they are all over our homes. And at the top of the most wanted list for VOCs is formaldehyde. Yeah, that one. Now, a little bit of it exists naturally outside, sure. But inside our homes? Whoa. The concentration can be 10, 20, even 30 times higher than it is outdoors. So where is all of this stuff coming from? Well, it's coming from some of the most common things we own. Formaldehyde is a key ingredient in the glues that hold together our plywood and particle board furniture. It's in the dyes for our carpets and couches. It's even a big component of cigarette smoke. And if you're in a newly built home, the levels can be even higher as all these new materials off-gas over time. So what does all this constant exposure actually do to us? Well, it can range from that annoying, nagging irritation in your eyes, nose, and throat to much more serious long-term worries. In fact, the US EPA has classified formaldehyde as a probable human carcinogen, which means, yep, it's been shown to cause cancer in lab studies. Actually, formaldehyde is considered the #1 VOC when it comes to something called sick building syndrome. Have you ever had this happen? You feel awful, headaches, you're tired, dizzy, but the second you walk out of a certain building, you start to feel better? That's it. That's sick building syndrome. It's a totally modern problem tied directly to our indoor spaces. Okay, moving on from our furniture, let's talk about a totally different kind of threat. These guys aren't off-gassing. They're the byproducts of things we burn inside our homes. So let's meet the combustion crew. First up in the crew is nitrogen dioxide, or NO2. If you cook with a gas stove, you're making this stuff every single time you turn it on. It's a known respiratory irritant, and get this, studies have actually shown that kids living in homes with gas stoves have more respiratory problems. And then there's the most infamous member of the crew, carbon monoxide, CO. You've heard it called the silent killer for a reason. It's colorless, it's odorless, it's tasteless, and it's made when fuels don't burn all the way. Think about a faulty furnace, a gas heater, or even a car left running in an attached garage. Okay, to really get why CO is so incredibly dangerous, you just need to know this one number, 234. That's because carbon monoxide binds to hemoglobin, the molecule in your blood that carries all your oxygen. It binds to it 234 times more strongly than oxygen itself. So when you breathe in CO, it's like a hostile takeover of your bloodstream. It hijacks your red blood cells, latching onto that hemoglobin and just refusing to let go. That means oxygen gets blocked, it can't get to your brain or your other organs. You're basically being starved of oxygen from the inside out. It's terrifying and it can be deadly. So just to put a bow on the combustion crew, you've got NO2 from your stove, which is an irritant, and then you have CO from a faulty furnace, which is an oxygen blocker. Both come from burning fuel, but they attack your body in completely different ways. All right, so our third category of indoor pollutants isn't a gas at all. We're talking about tiny, solid particles floating around in the air. The smoke and soot that, we can sometimes see, but their biggest dangers are totally invisible. And a huge source of this is environmental tobacco smoke, what we all know is secondhand smoke. It's not just one chemical. It's a toxic cocktail of thousands of them. And here's something wild. The side stream smoke, the stuff that comes from the burning tip of the cigarette, can actually be more toxic than the mainstream smoke that the smoker is inhaling. And look, this particulate problem is also a massive global health crisis. For an estimated 3 billion people, mostly in developing nations, the simple act of cooking on a basic stove fills their home with dangerous smoke. This leads to severe health problems, and it hits women and children the hardest. And for our final pollutant, well, we've got a true legend, a notorious one, with a really complicated history. We're talking about asbestos. You see, asbestos is this group of minerals that for the longest time was hailed as a miracle material. I mean, it's incredibly resistant to heat and fire, so for decades we used it in everything from building insulation to fireproof blankets to brake pads. But the very things that made it so useful also made it incredibly dangerous. The danger is all in its fibers. When asbestos materials get old or disturbed, they release these microscopic, needle-like fibers into the air. If you breathe them in, they can get lodged deep in your lungs, and then, decades later, cause mesothelioma, a rare, aggressive, and incurable cancer. And this creates a huge dilemma. A lot of experts argue that if the asbestos in a building is intact, if it's not crumbling, it's actually safer to just leave it alone. As one scientist so memorably put it, removing asbestos can be like waking up a pit bull terrier. You could end up creating a bigger hazard than the one you were trying to solve. So, let's take a breath, carefully, and recap. We've got chemicals off-gassing from our furniture, dangerous gases from our stoves, tiny particles from smoke, and even legendary minerals hidden in our walls. It is crystal clear that the inside of our home is a really complex chemical environment. Which leaves us with a pretty critical question, doesn't it? We think of our home as our safe space, our sanctuary. But how well do we really know the air we're breathing inside it day in and day out? The real challenge isn't just knowing the risks, it's rethinking our indoor spaces. Now that you know about these invisible threats, what's the first thing you'll look at differently?